So what's inside a washing machine? Today I'm taking apart the WM3770HWA LG front load washer. And I'll tell you, this is one of my favorite washers to work on. In fact, I love working on most LG appliances. A lot of people, especially older service people, will say that they hate working on LGs and that they're junk and yada yada. And they're really not. A lot of older, service guys that have been working since the 80s, they're very unfamiliar with these electrically controlled appliances, and they're intimidated by the simple fact that there's no real mechanical repairs on these machines anymore. It takes a bit of technical diagnosis as far as going through the computer and running the machine through test mode and isolating the issue. The actual disassembly part, as you could see, is pretty straightforward. There's one special tool that I happen to use, and that's for the tub bellow ring. What do they call that thing? Yeah, it's a ring. It's like a spring ring thing that holds the front bellow in place, and it's totally optional. I've been working on LGs all my life, and I just bought that special tool about a year ago. It does make it significantly easier to remove that spring clamp. That's what it's called. It's called a spring clamp. But that's it. The rest of it's disassembled with a Phillips head screwdriver and just a little bit of time. So if you have an older LG, the disassembly is pretty much the same. They've made it very, very simple, and it hasn't changed over the years. So I'm going to finish taking this apart, and then we're going to get into the inside of the machine, and I'll show you a little bit about the recirculation system and some other points on the machine.
Okay, so here it is, and sorry for the shaky camera, but so what we have at the top here, one of the ports is capped off. This is probably for a different model. They use the same gasket for a variety of different machines. I know that this particular port is for an LED light. I don't know what this one is for. This hose is a rinse jet. Now if we follow this hose, it goes up, over, and it goes to, this is the one of the cold water inlet valves. It looks like it winds off over here and actually goes to the bleach dispenser of all things. That's kind of weird. So maybe it has a dual purpose. So what really is the claim to fame on this machine is the presence of two pumps. Now the pump on the left is the drain pump, and the pump on the right is the recirculating pump. So if you follow the hoses, you have these two outlet hoses. Now this hose kind of wraps around the tub and winds up here at about the 4-ish o'clock position, and it will spray water in towards that way. And then this second one goes straight up to the left side and also sprays inward. It does collect all the water from the main sump here. Sorry guys about the bad light. But there's this main drain which also helps with the, it all feeds into the same thing. So it just recirculates the same wash water. This washer only has 3 shock absorbers, so it's not, super robust like maybe the Speed Queen is, but this washer basically never goes off balance, so it's definitely a very good design, despite the fact that it's only 3 instead of 4. You have your front counterweights, which are, I believe, just concrete wrapped in plastic. There's also one at the top here. Let's go take a look at the top now, because this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. So you have your power coming in, and it goes into this noise filter. The noise filter basically just cleans up the power and makes sure that you have like a pretty stable 120 volts AC. These used to have a fuse on them. I think this one still does. Yeah, there's a fuse right there. So if you ever have a significant power surge, hopefully this cheap noise filter will go out first and not trash your board. So cold water inlet valve is a triple valve. This has been standard on LG for quite some time actually. And then you have your single inlet valve. Now the single inlet valve, that hose basically goes to the hot, and I'm not sure exactly how it's routed into the assembly, but I'm sure they got it all figured out. Over here you have your water level pressure sensor, and this is what detects the water level. And then back here is your main control board, which is mounted always in the back, the rear kind of left corner of the machine. And this is basically the brains of the operation. Let's take a look at the back and see what else we have here. Okay, so back here you have the rotor and the stator, which is underneath. This also houses a part called the RPS sensor, which is the rotor position sensor, and it basically tells you, or tells the computer, what direction the rotor is spinning, how fast it's spinning, whether it's spinning or not. So it's a pretty crucial part, and it is one of the more frequently serviced things on these LG washers. So if you ever get an LE error code on your older LG washer, that means that it's a locked rotor error. And generally speaking, the RPS sensor will solve your issue. Now for a while, let me get down here. For a while they were having some issues with this main motor harness, and what was happening is, due to the vibrations, it was causing this wire to flex, and one of the wires would break in here. So you'd get that LE error code and you would replace the rotor position sensor and it will not solve the problem. And it turns out that this wire would break in here and it would give an intermittent connection. So if you just touched it the right way, it would start working fine, and if once it moved a certain way, it would lose the connection and it would give you that error code. So whenever I do a rotor position sensor, I always replace this motor harness. It's super dirt cheap. It was like $11 or something like that, and it's good insurance to make sure that your repair will be long lasting. So that's it, guys. This machine is very, very simple. There's not much to it. I really like working on LG washers. As you can see, I basically stripped this whole machine down, and it didn't take me very long. It took me about 10 minutes or so, and I have access to just about every part that I would need to normally access, short of obviously changing a bearing, which is generally when these machines get condemned. So let me get out of here. So that's it. There you have it, guys. I'm going to put it all back together, and we're going to do some more laundry.
A lot of people have a fear of working on their own appliances. They feel like they're going to make something worse, or that they're not going to know how to put it all back together. And when I got started in this business about 18 years ago, there was no YouTube. There wasn't really much in the way of resources as far as appliance repair. You basically had to go get a job for Sears or something, or anybody that was willing to train you, and you learn things kind of the old-fashioned way through experience. Now, with the advent of the internet, there is, in my opinion, no reason that the average person with general hand tools couldn't fix their own washer. There are some exceptions, like I don't recommend changing bearings on some washers because that's a pretty intense job and it does require some tools that are a little bit more than the standard uh, fare that you would find in your homeowner's toolbox. But things like an RPS sensor or a wire harness or an inlet valve for that matter, those are all pretty straightforward repairs. And the machine will generally tell you what's wrong with it. That's what I really love about modern washing machines. It takes a lot of the guesswork out. If you know how to put this machine in test mode, which I'll do on another video and go through you step by step so you know what you're testing, then you could pretty much solve the problem before you even take the machine apart, which is the beauty about these modern machines. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Stay tuned because I am going to do a pretty extensive series on this washer because it is one of my favorite washers out there. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. I really appreciate all of you who enjoy watching my videos.